Hello, I'm Dr. Holly Daniels, coming to you from Sober College Studios in Los Angeles, California, and this is a mental health moment. Today we're going to talk about relationships, and specifically how we attach in relationships, which means how we connect to people. Now, why is this important? Well, there's compelling evidence that strong relationships contribute to a long, healthy, and happy life. Those with healthy, fulfilling relationships live longer, they're less sick, they deal much less often with addictions, eating disorders, and other mental health issues. And those without healthy relationships have much higher rates of depression, get sick more often because their immune systems are bogged down, and also really, healthy relationships just feel better, right? We want to know how to have healthy relationships because we're communal beings, we're relational beings, and we want that deep kind of soul support and companionship that just feels good. Now, you might have already watched our mental health moment on personal boundaries, which talks about healthy and unhealthy boundaries and how they affect relationships. We discussed that healthy personal boundaries are firm but permeable, that in order to have healthy boundaries, we need to be able to both know what our limits are physically, emotionally, and mentally, and be able to be direct about those limits, but be comfortable being vulnerable too, and vulnerable enough to let people into our personal emotional space when we've deemed them trustworthy. So today we're going to talk about how to create healthy boundaries. Now, my discussion here today does not take the place of psychotherapy. To learn to create healthy boundaries and securely attach to each other, you really need the help of a professional for maybe a long period of time, but we're just going to go through the nuts and bolts here so you can get started. When you're thinking to yourself, why can't I find and maintain good feeling relationships? Why do I have trouble in romantic relationships or family relationships? The first step you can do is to identify your attachment style. In psychology, we talk about attachment styles, which were developed by psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, in order to describe how individuals enter into other human relationships. For our purposes today, we're going to talk about three types of attachment: healthy attachment or secure attachment, avoidant insecure attachment, and preoccupied insecure attachment. Now, in order to make those big psychology words more digestible and understandable, I really like to use popular music to showcase these three different attachment styles. Music is a universal language, after all. It's much more fun than psychology talk, and the drama that is actually present in our popular music and in the lives of our popular music stars is often a great place to find some examples of different attachment and relationship styles. So let's look at some well-known songs from our not-so-distant past and look at these three different attachment styles. The first style we're going to look at is called insecure preoccupied attachment. This is when we're preoccupied with the other person and we need their companionship in order to feel good about ourselves. Some psychologists say that preoccupied attached person always values the relationship and the needs of the other person more than they value themselves. So we spend a lot of energy taking care of the other person and trying to preserve the relationship if we're preoccupied, even if the person is mean or abusive or the relationship isn't really working out. That's preoccupied attachment. So there's a great Bruno Mars song that goes something like this: I would catch a grenade for you, right? You know that song? So the lyrics go, I'd catch a grenade for you, I'd throw my hand on a blade for you, I'd jump in front of a train for you, I'd do anything for you, I'd go through all this pain, take a bullet straight through my brain, I would die for you, but you won't do the same. He goes on to say, you'll smile in my face and rip the brakes out of my car. That if he was on fire, his lover would just watch him burn down in flames. And yet, he says, I'd still catch a grenade for you, jump in front of a train for you, right? This is a textbook case of preoccupied attachment, a very unhealthy case of it, right? Bruno obviously values his partner and holding on to the relationship much more than he values himself and his own life. And I'm sure this isn't actually Bruno talking, but it's a very interesting example of the desperation for the need for relationship, the need to have the other person around, that need is greater than his own need to be well and healthy and be alive, right? And so when we're talking about boundaries, these people who have this preoccupied attachment style often have boundaries that are too permeable. They're just letting too many people in, and they aren't being strong enough in protecting themselves when they need to in relationship. Now let's look at the other end of the spectrum, insecure attachment style called avoidant attachment. If we're avoidantly attached, it means that being close, being intimate, being vulnerable, opening our heart to another person, right, or your parent or your sibling or a romantic relationship feels really uncomfortable. And so you try to avoid relationship completely. Some psychologists say that avoidantly attached person always put their needs before the needs of the relationship. So if you're avoidantly attached, you've decided that other people are kind of scary. They can't be trusted. That relationship just brings pain, and so you're going to avoid it in general. Now, avoidantly attached people are still nice and they're polite, and they're usually people who are very independent, right? They're usually go-getters who are super successful, and that makes sense because they don't want to rely on anybody else, so they find out and figure out in their lives how to be super independent. But they don't actually get to reap the rewards of relationships. Remember what those are? Feeling better, living longer, feeling healthy and supported, having better neurotransmitters. They don't get all of that good relationship stuff because they're so avoidant. So let's look at Alex Clare's most well-known song, I Feel Like I Am Just Too Close to Love You. Right? This is a great illustration of avoidant attachment. Alex declares, you're still my best friend at the end of it all. You're still my best friend, but there's something inside that I need to release. Right? He's saying feeling really close does not feel so good and I need to run. It's a little too uncomfortable, I feel smothered, right? And then he says, you've given me more than I can return. There's also, so much that you deserve, and there's nothing to say and nothing to do. I don't even want to talk about it, right? I've got nothing to give you and I must live without you. So there's also this feeling of I have nothing to give to a relationship, right? I have never had the experience of a give and take in relationship that felt good. There's a pulling back, a conservation of energy into the self. He doesn't want to find comfort and support within the relationship. Can't lean into the relationship to find that renewal of energy with another. So you shun relationship altogether to be alone. Or what often happens is you'll have a series of more shallow, relatively short-lasting relationships because deep down, you can't open up quite enough to be vulnerable enough to commit to a long-term reciprocal relationship. So you go from relationship to relationship just shallowly. So even though, Alex seems really independent and free and he's like this Marlboro Man kind of person and he doesn't really need anyone, we actually know inside that he's probably pretty lonely and he's probably prone to fall into depression, have high blood pressure, have a shorter lifespan, right? Because he's not reaping the benefits of relationship. So when we're talking about boundaries, these folks who have avoidant attachment have too firm boundaries, right? Their boundaries are more like walls. So what do you do if you recognize that you have boundaries that are either too permeable or too firm, and you want to learn how to have healthy, secure attachments with people? Well, you can do what we call taking opposite action. And some may recognize this as a DBT skill, right? Act counterintuitively to your given attachment style. Now, you do need to do this with a therapist, right? You need a professional who's caring and objective to help you through the process, and it's not going to be quick or super easy because it's taking you many, many years to develop your attachment style. It's going to take some time to change it, right? But it is doable. So if you are primarily avoidantly attached, you'll find balance by practicing staying in relationship, working through the discomfort of being close. You'll actually find your authentic self through relationship. If you're primarily preoccupied, attached, or enmeshed, then your journey to healthy attachment and boundaries will be practicing being alone and moving through the discomfort of just being with yourself and finding yourself. So the process is first identify what your primary attachment style is, and then work with opposite action to find the balance that you weren't able to achieve growing up. And the truth is, while you go through this process, there may be areas that you identify that you're predominantly avoidantly attached here, you're predominantly preoccupied attached here, and you have to tease all of that out and figure out where the balance is in the different areas of your life. And this is why it's really helpful to do that with a therapist, right? There's no one-size-fits-all treatment plan to fix an unhealthy attachment style. It's complicated, right? And in romantic relationships, it can get really complicated because people with preoccupied attachment often fall for people who are avoidantly attached and vice versa. And it can get very messy. So wading through all these complications is best done with a licensed clinician. Of course, before we go, we have to explore a song, right, that represents healthy attachment. There are songs out there that do. Healthy attachment means we have good self-esteem, we value the good in other people, we're able to be vulnerable and open and create strong relationships because we know it feels good to be in relationship, and we know that we're going to be okay if the relationship fails or doesn't go the way we wanted to, and we're willing to risk being hurt because we know the benefits of being open, right, and giving to a relationship. Simultaneously, we're able to set those boundaries and be firm when we need to if someone becomes abusive or mean. And we're able to leave a relationship, right, if need be, and still know that we're going to be okay. So my favorite healthy attachment song happens to be by Jason Maraz. I won't give up. on us. We all know that song. Jason talks about this love that really means a lot to him. He'll stick with it in good times and bad. If his partner needs some time to take a break, Jason understands. And when you're needing your space to do some navigating, I'll be here patiently waiting to see what you find. And one of my favorite lyrics of all time, when Jason says, "We have to learn how to bend without the world caving in." What a beautiful way to describe the ups and downs of being in a relationship and the importance of being flexible and how we can move and grow and bend and turn with the difficulties. And in a healthy relationship, how we resolve those difficulties together actually brings us closer together and brings more of the benefits of healthy relationship, right? And comfort and good health, boosted immune system, healthier neurotransmitters, lower anxiety, and more happiness overall. I hope this helped with your understanding of attachment styles, what it means to have healthy boundaries in relationships, and what you can do if you recognize that you struggle with insecure attachment in some areas of your life. As always, we'd love to hear your questions and comments, so please send us an email to the address on the screen. I'm Dr. Holly Daniels, wishing you all health and happiness.